Hola, ¿cómo estás? Ça va bien? Y tú? What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Tuesday edition of Burn It Down with Kim Brown, the safe space where we set oppression ablaze because we know something will and must, obviously, arise better from the flames like phoenixes to the wind. Everybody, we absolutely will prevail in all of our travails out here. Want to say what's up to the whole crew. Everybody is checking in. I see so many of my favorite smiling faces up in the place. Dawn Gibson in the building. Dawn, you already on the kind of time I am. Dawn said that she is on an indica called Georgia Pie. And honey, I too am toasted, woasted with the mosted. Now, I know y'all like, how come you don't smoke with us no more, Kim? Because I was getting too toasty, quite honestly, smoking in the middle of the show. And it is something that I won't say that we won't resume again, but I think I'm a little bit more lucid when I'm not in the moment on the tree. It is 5:00 Eastern Standard Time. Please believe I have consumed weed today on more than one occasion. But in terms of doing it in the middle of the show or to commence the show, it's working a little better. Tyler Hackett, thank you so much, honey, for your early support. Hey, we got everybody up in here. We got Valley Girls 24. We got Freddie French, Northern Witch, Chuck Diesel, Kev Z 24/7, Schulte 100. Everybody's in here. Patricia Palumbo. Who else did I see up in this joint? I seen Afraid Not up in this bitch. I seen Toby Swoley. Toby Swoley, thank you so much for re-upping on your Patreon. We got a Peyton up in this joint. What's up, Peyton? Did I already say Natalie? Shirley, of course. Hey, Shirley. I love to see everybody. I love y'all. Thank y'all so much for consistently coming through, coming by, and having a good old time with your homie. Craig Bardo is up in here also. Where Lateef? Lateef late as shit. We're going to smack the shit out Lateef when we see him. What's up, Leah? How you feel, baby? Guys, we have a wonderful, wonderful show in store for you today. Couple of things we're going to talk about. Obviously, our hearts and best intentions and vibrations are with the people down in the Gulf Coast. Obviously, Louisiana just hit hard by Hurricane Ida. The storm moving up through Mississippi into Tennessee. It's going to be headed this way, but trust me, whatever Ida's going to do in this mid-Atlantic, DC, Maryland, Virginia area ain't nothing compared to what it has done in Louisiana and Mississippi and Tennessee. So we're going to talk about the ways in which government infrastructure, number one, continues to fail the people of the Gulf Coast and Florida, who are getting hit now with bigger and stronger, more powerful storms more frequently. Like, y'all, I mean, how long are we going to deal with this busted Acme-ass power grid that they got going along in the United States? Where's Pookiewood? Pookiewood will tell you about how the damn power grid failed in Texas in the middle of winter in the worst storm in Texas history, the ice storm that shut everything down. Hundreds of people died, right? And it definitely seems as though the federal and state governments are quite content with an acceptable loss of life, especially when that loss of life is overwhelmingly Black and brown and overwhelmingly poor, right? So we're going to talk about that and those anti-looting squads. What? I'm sorry, what? A what? Chef Jose Andres is down there feeding people and the police is out here trying to what? Defend grocery stores during a power outage in Louisiana in August? Make it make sense, everybody. In addition to that topic, you guys, we're going to talk about how under Black leadership, under Black mayors, under Black city councils, under Black police chiefs, overwhelmingly, right, the so-called Black progressive faces in powerful places are usually working against the interests of the very communities that they claim to serve. And one of those instances showed itself, revealed itself earlier this year when Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, I know we got some Keisha Lance Bottoms voters up in here. Show yourselves. Own it. Own it. You know y'all vote for these Black Democrats and you should be ashamed. You should absolutely be ashamed, guys. But in the face of incredible protests across the country in support of justice for Black lives, specifically, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, in Atlanta itself, Rashard Brooks. This is what Keisha Lance Bottoms, y'all's girl, y'all know y'all voted for Keisha Lance Bottoms, said in her State of the City address back on March 31st. And y'all, this was I watched this show, and let me show you. This is a state of the city or a state of the state, whatever, an address to her constituents. This is some shit I'd never seen before. Not this part that we're about to see, because this part in itself is ridiculous and deplorable by itself, but she led off her State of the City address like thanking like her corporate sponsors, like Coca-Cola, like she thanked Grubhub for catering the breakfast for the State of the City address. I was like, I never heard this level of blatant corporate ownership of elected officials and of a specific city like this. Like, damn, that was weird. But anyway, this is what Keisha Lance Bottoms said back on March 31st when it came to how the city of Atlanta was going to deal with accountability for police, accountability, I'll use that phrase very, very loosely, and how the city intends to support the police. Notice that one explanation is way, way heavier and more detailed than the other two. Let's take a look at that, please.
So while we focus on building that trust, we are also supporting our officers who show up every day committed to respecting our communities and keeping our cities safe. Supporting our officers and holding them accountable are not mutually exclusive. We can and should do both. You may recall that one of the major actions we took in supporting our officers was passing the largest pay increase for police in the city's history. We are also now working with City Council to enact a retention bonus to keep those officers from leaving the force. The good news is that men and women still have a desire to work in the Atlanta Police Department, and we are committed to putting an additional 250 new officers on the street during the next fiscal year. We currently have in training 3 new APD recruitment classes with a total of 90 recruits in the pipeline. Building on what we have learned from our advisory council on the use of force, we partnered with policing experts to develop new training that includes de-escalation tactics. What that means is that officers are being trained on when and how to intervene to diffuse a situation when engaging members of our community. We're also committed to working with our philanthropic and corporate partners to build a new public safety training facility for our police officers and our fire department to ensure that they get top-notch training in a well-equipped facility. Right now, our public safety personnel are training in spaces that are too small, too old, and not up to technological standards. A top-notch city should have a top-notch training facility.
A top-notch city should have a top-notch training facility. As you heard there, Keisha Lance Bottoms outlined more cops on the street, more money for cops, more training for cops, and a cop academy that is proposed in Atlanta that will actually raise dozens of acres of green space in a city that lacks increasingly more green spaces. However, there has been a cinch in this plan to build this cop academy in Atlanta, and has everything to do with people in Atlanta getting organized and voicing their vociferous opposition to this project. Guys, I want you to help me welcome to the program today Kamau Franklin, who is the founder of Community Movement Builders. He has been the founder of Community Movement Builders, and he's been a dedicated community organizer for over 30 years, starting in New York City, and now he is based in Atlanta. And a lot of you guys already know Kamau from Black Power Media. We co-host the Remix Morning Show together. Also, Kamau's over there with Renegade Culture and Riot Started TV. So Kamau, thank you so much for coming on over to Burn It Down with Kim Brown. We appreciate to see you today. How are you?
I'm doing really good. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate being on your show.
Yo, so when I saw the news, because I saw you making the rounds on different places talking about how, what seemed to be a pretty much sure thing, this Atlanta Cop Academy, this proposed Atlanta Cop Academy, which obviously has the blessing of the mayor, seemed to have the blessing overwhelmingly of the Atlanta City Council, except a recent vote by the City Council. I think the vote was something like 8-7. They decided to temporarily table a vote of, I would assume will be final approval of the Cop Academy, but that was in large part due to people in the city get organized and telling the City Council and the Democratic leadership there in Atlanta that this Cop Academy was unwanted. Kamau, talk to us about where in the stage of this fight that activists like yourself are at regarding the construction of this Cop Academy.
Yeah. As far as the City Council is concerned, who has the responsibility for either passing this measure or not, September 7th is when they're supposed to take their next vote to ostensibly possibly pass a legislation to give away land, basically, for the police to build their $90 million Cop Academy, or as we call it, Cop City. And this fight started several months ago when the city and the City Council themselves thought that this was going to breeze through. There were no public hearings scheduled. This was something that had all the support of the City Council members, 16-0. And they just expected this to fly through. But then community organizers and activists caught wind of what was happening, concerned community members, and it's across the board. Folks who are worried about policing, over-policing, criminal activity by the police, to folks who are worried about the fact that they're going to chop down literally over 100 acres of forest in order to build this state-of-the-art police training academy, which is really a place for them to train how to more effectively not only arrest and harass Black people in the streets, but we also think this is a response to the George Floyd demonstrations of over a year ago, where they're learning new tactics on how to control organizers and activists who fight back against police brutality and police misconduct. So it's only through the organizing that's been happening over the last 7 or 8 weeks that we got to a stage where we went from no hearings to fake public hearings by the City Council, in which they did not allow anyone to speak at those hearings. They didn't let anybody except for the moderator see commentary. And then the moderator themselves chose what would be aired, to a place where the communities themselves had a public hearing. City Council members were forced to come out. Some City Council members even came out against the Cop Academy because they understood that overwhelmingly, we had over 100 speakers at that town hall, and all of them were opposed to Cop City. And again, it was across the spectrum: young, old, Black, white, straight, gay. Anybody who was concerned about politics in Atlanta were opposed to this Cop City. And so that's why we're at where we're at today, where we know more organizing is going to be needed, but we've at least temporarily put them on their heels when it comes to passing this straight through.
You know, Kamau, when I was doing some research for this, 2 names kept popping up, and I'm like, who are these people? Because they don't seem like good people, whoever they are. And it was the Atlanta Committee for Progress and the Atlanta Police Foundation. And all throughout Keisha Lance Bottom's, plan for policing or reimagine policing for Atlanta, she kept talking about these private public partnerships. And I kept thinking to myself, that sounds terrible. Like, what role do corporations play when it comes to public safety and policing? So to talk to me about, if you know about how these organizations, the Atlanta Committee for Progress and the Atlanta Police Foundation, like, how do they factor into all of this? And what kind of private public partnerships with corporations could Keisha Lance Bottoms be describing when she's talking about this in terms of policing in Atlanta?
Well, if anybody knows Atlanta, they know that corporations dominate the political and economic scene, as in there are many so-called public-private partnerships, which essentially turn over public responsibility to private hands, where the private sector gets to raise money, gets to set the agenda, and gets to enact, whether that's construction and development to things like public safety. So in this case, you have the Police Foundation, which is basically a foundation that is well-resourced, that teams up with private enterprises, which include, or not strictly includes corporations, but also includes Spelman College and Morehouse College, who have joined on with these private funders to support this Cop Academy. And so far, $90 million has already been raised for them to build this cop city that they want to build. And this is instead of raising money again for public safety issues, for alternatives to policing issues, for housing alternatives. Instead of thinking about that, instead of having a public-private partnership focused on that, one was created specifically at this particular stage to help support the police build a new training facility. And again, I think this is part and parcel of a narrative shift that both the corporations and the city council is behind, and trying to say last year, the police were on their heels. Policing was on its heels in terms of how it's conducted in our community, the over-policing, the harassment, the actual murders that has been happening in our communities, that we were calling for alternatives to policing. We were calling for community control of policing. We're calling for abolition of police, defunding of police, that those were major calls coming out of communities based on what was happening. And these private interests, again, along with the city, joined together to sort of change the narrative, to talk about so-called crime increases, to talk about the need for having more police and how the police were treated badly. That's what happened last year. And I mean, that's what's happening at the earlier part of this year, which has now led us to this point where all you get on the news stations, and this includes the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, which is also a part of, which is the major newspaper here in Atlanta, which is also a part of this private partnership. So all these corporate forces are lining up to protect and redeem the police's image as we as community organizers fight back against having more police in our streets to harass and control us.
Kamau, I am so glad you mentioned the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, because when I was doing my Googles earlier, I came across this piece written by, I don't know if this dude, I was going to say some Negro. Well, let me not give him that much credit. I have no idea what this man's background is, but Wilborn P. Nobles III. Right, Wilborn P. Nobles III wrote this piece in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution with the headline, Atlanta Mayor touts plans to open new police training center. And Kamau, I swear to God, I read this article, we call it an article very loosely, because it read exactly like a press release from the Atlanta Police Foundation. I was blown away. I'm like, there is not a critical word about any sort of opposition to this project at all, nor is there any mention about price and or cost or any of that. Like, it read exactly like a PR press release. I was like, bro, they got the AJC in their pocket over here, the Police Foundation. Yeah. So that's
the Cox
crazy.
Foundation, the Cox Foundation, which again is the ownership of the AJC in Atlanta, is firmly behind this cop city. And again, there's been editorials that by the editorial board, which has supported this cop city. And so again, if they're so interested in having training center, instead of them showing pictures of a training center that is in disrepair, use some of your money to fix up that training center. It doesn't take a 90 million deforestation plan to build a new training center if that's so what their wishes are. And again, they're trying to tie this to what they claim is an increase in crime. Even under the best of circumstances for them, without community action, it would take 3 to 5 years to build this kind of facility. So this has nothing to do with anything associated with crime, but more to do with creating a pro-police narrative, throwing bones at the police to make them feel empowered. Well, again, while we as the community suffer under abuse, false arrest, harassment, illegal detention, and again, sometimes even murder. So instead of fixing those problems, instead of concentrating on those issues, the city of Atlanta, Keisha Lance Bottoms, the city council has decided to reward the very police that have been hurting and maiming our people. And this all fits in again. So like you said, that the larger situation of having these city officials in the pockets of the police and corporate interests, these same Black city officials who now for over 4 decades have controlled Atlanta, and under their tutelage, their leadership, Atlanta has gone from a majority Black working class city to now a majority white city that is looking more like a San Francisco and a Seattle model, where working class and poor people cannot afford to live in the city, where homeless people are being pushed out of the city. And so no issue is being dealt with except for trying to satiate the police with raises and cop academies, as opposed to working for what's good in the local communities at hand.
Hello. Sounds like Washington, D.C. Also, it is the gentrification is absolutely violent in these places. And Tunde, I wanted to take a look at that 11 Alive news package. This was from several weeks ago, and maybe even longer than that, maybe even a couple of months ago, where I think the reporter's name is Hope Franklin. She went out to, because this is in Southwest Atlanta or DeKalb County or unincorporated part of DeKalb County. Do I have that right, Kamau?
Yeah, unincorporated DeKalb County, yes.
Right. So so she's going to talk to some people we're going to hear in this package from some residents there who at the time were talking about, well, exactly what you described, how the community's voices were largely omitted. They were not consulted. There was not meetings and the like. So Tunde, let's take a look at that package from 11 Alive News in Atlanta.
Why is this piece of land the subject of such debate?
There is history, there is ecological importance to it.
It's not the land itself.
Don't destroy to create more destruction.
But what the city wants to do with the land.
Completely oppose the city's proposal to lease forested land to the Atlanta Police Foundation for the development of a new police training facility.
A police training facility on 150 acres of the old Atlanta prison farm. This is a mock-up of what the campus would look like. Outdoor and indoor shooting ranges, classes, and auditoriums for police, fire, and rescue teams to use for real-world training. Supporters believe it would help recruit. Opponents like Mina Turabi think it would hurt.
This area has been so underserved for the past 20 years that this is the only green area that they have.
The land is near low-income communities, uncared for homes, homeless citizens, and a police precinct.
We always see police cars riding by. So you're already over-policing an area that's impoverished.
Some speakers blasted the city council for not consulting residents. In fact, during this interview with Tarabi, 2 people stopped us, upset their voices weren't considered.
They think either they lower income, not educated, or don't know how to talk and all like that. But a lot of what they say makes more sense than anybody's saying.
Continue to take away from a community while we're getting pushed out of a community.
All 15 members of the Atlanta City Council voted to move the ordinance to the Public Safety Committee. Tarabi maintains planning the facility here won't alone solve the problems.
We need to actually address the root of crime instead of just trying to be reactive to it all the time.
She and others aren't opposed to a training facility, but argue it shouldn't land on this land.
That package from 11 Alive News. Kamau, I have a question for you, because hopefully organizers will be able to stop this cop academy from being built. But with Atlanta being so hot, the real estate being so hot, and the desire to push Black people as far away from hot real estate areas as much as possible, isn't there still a danger that this land still could be seized and developed in the same problems associated with the cop academy coming, I guess, minus the police per se, but the same issues of violent pushing out of generational residents in that area? Is that still very much a risk, even if the cop academy is able to be stopped entirely?
Yeah, I mean, that's still always an issue in Atlanta. And again, whether the promise for this particular land that it would not be developed in a way that had large structures built that tore down forests, that instead it would be green space and parkland for the local community. But as you already stated, the issue that's happening in Atlanta, the use of land and how it's used and who gets to decide, and this is happening in many large cities, of course, across the country, but the use of that land is strictly going into corporate development, into big commercial development, box stores. Is strictly going towards the creating of condos, which are priced in the hundreds of thousands to, at this point, millions of dollars, to new housing stock, which is in neighborhoods like Southwest Atlanta and Pittsburgh, where we do our work. And we bought a community house 5 or 6 years ago for $52,000. That community house is now estimated to be valued at $250,000. And in fact, a new house was just built in the neighborhood. And again, this is a working class and poor Black community. A new house was recently built that sold for $750,000 by a speculative real estate agent. And a second one is being built right next door to it. So the neighborhoods are under attack in Atlanta. Poor Black residents, working class Black residents, working class people in general, again, are being pushed out of Atlanta in favor for a management class who work for corporations, big corporations, and for an elite class to have a play city, and Atlanta seems to be the southern destination for that. So these are the strains that are happening, and the Cop City is just one one element of that. But again, the recent census that said that the Black population in Atlanta dipped under 50% for the first time in over 50 or 60 years, where at one point it was upwards of 60%. And that's happened because public housing in Atlanta has been destroyed. There's no public housing in Atlanta. Again, during the Olympics, homeless people were paid to leave Atlanta. There's no shelters left in Atlanta proper. And there's not like they're building homes or any alternative means to put poor and working class people in order to keep poor working class people in Atlanta. So this is basically a playground for the rich. And it's the Black mayors and the Black city council folks who have paved the way for this to happen.
Oh, Kamau, you segued perfectly to the comedic portion of this interview about what is the elected leadership class doing in Atlanta to either prevent this cop academy and I guess the further gentrification of the city. But I mean, I would imagine that prior to the public outcry, the vote for this cop academy seemed to be pretty much a done deal until y'all Negroes started making noise and then they had to reconsider. So I know Keisha Lance Bottoms is not seeking re-election. What about the people who are running to be Atlanta's mayor and also the members of the city council? Are they firmly in the pocket for this cop academy, or are there any holdouts or rebels, as it were, that are vocally against this and working against the cop academy coming to this neighborhood?
Well, we have no rebels in Atlanta in the city council. We do have maybe some progressives, some liberals. We have some people who can be moved on the issue, and we've had a few who have moved on the issue and said that they don't support the cop academy. And we've had a couple that said that they don't support the cop city where it's located now. But for the most part, as you said, going into this fight, it was a 15-0. And 16-0 if you count Felicia Moore, who is the president of the city council, who's also running for mayor, and Kasim Reed, the former mayor of Atlanta for 2 terms, who basically is the sort of epicenter of a corporate takeover of Atlanta, proud of his record of having Black Atlantans, again, poor working class Black Atlantans, chased out of the city. That for this city to now be on the verge of electing either Felicia Moore or Kasim Reed shows again the direction of where the city continues to head, and the money resources that make these the most viable candidates. And then other candidates who may have alternative ideas cannot even raise the resources that these folks can. And it's not so much, again, that any of the other candidates are rebels or strongly progressive. There's certainly no radicals in a bunch. But, you know, the fact that you can't even get that in there because you have these moneyed candidates who are taking up all the spotlight, all the resources, all the commercials, you know, it doesn't bode well for what's going to be next in this city. I can predict another 5 or 10 or 15 years, this city, the next election after this, let's say it like that, you probably won't have a Black mayor again. You won't have a majority Black city council. You will have a city in Atlanta that is less than 40% Black. And so the so-called Black Mecca is potentially over. It's only going to take resources to our communities, our community-based organizations, the fighting, the organizing to try to stop this and stop this now. But capital is big and capital is strong, and capital has had a 40-year head start with the support of, again, the Black City Council and the Black mayors. And so, you know, it doesn't bode well for who the next mayor would be for working class and poor people in Atlanta, and again, particularly for working class and poor Black folks in Atlanta.
Well, Kamau, with this pending city council vote coming up, as you said, September 7th, we'll be keeping a close eye on this. For people who want to find out more about not only this, but other community struggles and actions that are happening in Atlanta, especially with community movement builders, where can they find you and find out about your work?
Well, they can find us. You know, we have our website, communitymovementbuilders.org. We're on all social media. I would say Twitter, Instagram at Community Movement Builders. You'll find an upcoming rally happening this Friday at 7 o'clock in downtown Atlanta again, against Cop City. We're doing everything we can to keep the pressure on. And it's only because we've had town halls, demonstrations, people calling in to city council members, people pressuring the media to give a fair story about what's happening. It's only because of that we've even been able to push them back the way we have. And so that fight is continuing on.
Well, keep up the amazing work, man. I hope y'all are triumphant in this fight, because no, the police absolutely don't need more. Regardless of if they don't need more, they're absolutely going to get more, but they absolutely should not get it just because they want it. that should not be good enough. So I appreciate the resistance down there in Atlanta with you and all the other people that are organizing against this. You guys, we've been speaking with Kamau Franklin. He is the founder of Community Movement Builders. You can also find Kamau Franklin over at Black Power Media, which I know everybody here is already a subscriber. So Kamau, thank you. Thank you again for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Peace. Appreciate you.
See ya. Tyler Hackett, thank you so much for your support. I appreciate that, guys. And I'm glad that you guys enjoyed that conversation with Kamau. Please follow Kamau as he just outlined all the places on the internet, because I think that this can get done. I think that there is enough of an opposition to the way the police operate in general, but to the way Atlanta police operate specifically, and how much the communities there have been so greatly impacted by gentrification. And the Cop Academy might be as bad, if not worse than gentrification. Would you say? I think it would be fucking terrible. So we'll be keeping an eye on what's happening in Atlanta with the fight against the Cop Academy. Guys, thank you all so much for showing up. We are almost at a good like to persons watching ratio, gang. We got 74 likes and we got 89 people watching. So go on, hit them thumbs up. Make that math equate perfectly. And if you wouldn't mind, you also can follow us places around the internet. We're on Instagram and Facebook at BIDWKB, on TikTok as well. And we're on Twitter at BurnItDownKB. Follow us there if you want to support the program. You can do so at patreon.com/BIDWKB, and it's BIDWKB pretty much everywhere else. Cash App, Venmo, and PayPal. PayPal.me/BIDWKB. Y'all, no amount is too small. We certainly appreciate all your support for this program and this platform. It is desperately needed, as you guys can see, because there's just so much news out there. And then a lot of the news that impacts us, marginalized people, is usually overlooked or not talked about, and just like, no, it's not interesting. No, it's extremely interesting. I'm not interested in Kris Jenner and her longtime boyfriend's wedding, but that I saw that story twice on my local morning show news this morning, and I'm like, y'all talk a lot of dumb shit. I'm sure there's a space for the entertainment news. I don't overtly have an objection to it, but not at 8 a.m. Please don't tell me what's that at 8 a.m. I live in proximity to the nation's capital. I assure you there is an hour's worth of news, local news, of actual stories that impact actual people that can be easily covered. You don't have to take me to TMZ and tell me what the fuck's going on. Why Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis don't bathe their children. Why the fuck was that even a goddamn news story at all? Do you know how annoyed I was by that? Like, y'all actually reported this on the actual news. Make it make sense, everybody. A.R. Walker, thank you so much, honey, for your support. A.R. Walker says, 90 million for Cop City, all the homeless folks in Atlanta. Why not create programs to help the homeless and the communities? Clearly, they have the money to do it. The Black Misleadership class showed A.R. I was watching that Keisha Lance Bottoms press conference, or rather her State of the City address, and I thought I was watching Muriel Bowser with a better hairstyle. Muriel Bowser, the mayor of Washington, D.C., just this epitome, like if Black bourgeoisie just came to life and became in its final form. It looks exactly like Keisha Lance Bottoms and Muriel Bowser. And what's one of them of a hoity-toity Democrat, Negroes? So give me another one. Y'all do they like Sylvester Turner? Isn't that the mayor of Houston's name? Is he all right? I don't know. He came up for Bloomberg, so I figured he was a fuck boy. You come up for Bloomberg and you a Negro. What are the other options of what you could possibly be besides a fuck boy or girl? Make it make sense. Make it make sense. Keisha Lance the bottom showed hey. Oh man. Well, speaking of the bottom, y'all, our people in the Gulf have been hit hard once again by yet another hurricane, as we are seeing an increasing amount of named storms during hurricane season. We are getting deeper into hurricane season, like deeper into the alphabet with hurricane season, and the storms are becoming more powerful. And as sea levels continue to rise, obviously coastal areas are going to be more impacted with erosion of the wetlands, beach erosion, and motherfucking flooding. Ridiculous, right? Louisiana and now Mississippi and going up into Tennessee Valley, up in Tennessee, they're now dealing with the remnants of Hurricane Ida, which hit shore as a Cat 4, y'all. Category 4. That shit is crazy. Crazy. Damn near 16 years to the day as Hurricane Katrina. Guys, I remember Katrina almost in the worst way. Now, I was fortunate. I don't have family in the area. Obviously, I was heartbroken for people. And I was living in the Midwest at the time, and I had not long arrived at the Midwest, so I didn't really know many people. But I was up all night watching cable news and seeing the devastating scenes from Katrina. And I just remember just weeping. Like, I was just so heartbroken and devastated by not only what happened, but then what didn't happen after that. Remember when Kanye was our boy? before he turned all the way fuck boy. Remember when Kanye stood up on the white man's television and the white man's TV network and said right to the white man's face, Michael Moore, you had to take it. Well, no, I'm sorry, Michael Myers. you had to stand there and deal with that, Michael Myers. George Bush don't care about black people. The realest shit Kanye West has ever said out his mouth in his entire life. All his rap albums be damned. Kanye ain't never said a realer line than that one right there, right then, during the telethon. That was the realest shit ever. And guess what? George Bush didn't care about black people. Barack Obama didn't care about black people. Donald Trump damn sure don't care about black people. And Joe Biden is absolutely going to hold up that mantle and continue that unbeaten streak of presidents not giving a fuck about black people. So, right. Well, AR, he was probably always with them white girls in one way or the other. That was not Kanye's problem, by the way. Kanye dating interracially was not his issue. I don't know what the fuck Kanye's problem was. Kanye went all the way left. I mean, I'm sure there was a lot of compounding, cascading issues. I'm not going to get into a whole thing about what the fuck happened to Kanye, but I will still say Kanye never said nothing realer than George Bush don't care about black people the way he did in that moment at that exact time. So shout out to that Kanye, to that dude from 05. 05 Kanye was a real one. But so Ida came through. We still don't know, I guess, what the final death toll is going to be for people affected by the storms in Louisiana, because again, search and rescue is still happening. I hope they have restored power, because last I heard it was over 1 million without power in New Orleans, which is absolutely unacceptable. And Tunde, if you could pop up for me, please. Chef Jose Andres, the picture, if you don't mind, guys, because, you know, while I watched part of the Mayor of New Orleans press conference today, is it Mayor Cantrell? Do I have that right? Black lady, she seems like she could probably throw down in the kitchen. Shout out, no, I'm not gonna shout out Mayor Cantrell, because I don't know what's up with Mayor Cantrell. I can't just be shouting out these black lawmakers all willy-nilly, because these black lawmakers' track records can be a little sketchy, as we all know over here. But yes, this is Chef Jose Andres from the World Central Kitchen giving an update that communities impacted by Ida and in need of a meal may come to one of any of these sites where World Central Kitchen is providing food. This is numerous places spread out across the New Orleans area. I would hope actually that if you have been impacted by Hurricane Ida, you probably should not be watching us today. You probably have bigger fish to fry. But just to give y'all an idea of the kind of help that is out there. And Tunde, could you pop up that Mattress Mac clip for me too? Because I know it. I don't think there's any sound to it, but it's just pictures. Houston, all of our Texas people who flee Louisiana sometimes evacuate to Texas. They evacuate right there to Houston. And Mattress Mac. Now, I think most mattress stores is dealing that yayo in one wayo or a nayo. They dealing that yayo. But anyway, that's a whole nother theory that I'm just gonna leave that right there. But Mattress Mac has been known for opening up their stores to accommodate hurricane evacuees. And I guess now with Hurricane Ida, it is no different. You see that sign there in front of the Mattress Mac, reported to be in Houston, Louisiana. Residents, welcome. Come on inside. Lay down on inside. So shout out to Mattress Mac. Shout out to World Central Kitchen. But let me tell y'all who we're not finna shout out. Y'all already know who we're not finna shout out. We're not finna shout out the police. Why? Because the police, in the midst of a natural disaster, a Cat 4 hurricane hitting New Orleans, is nothing to sneeze at. I'm very glad that the levees held, at least what's being reported, the levees held to the extent that the flooding is not as severe as it was in, say, a Katrina, but still people are dealing with very difficult circumstances with no power, no air conditioning in Louisiana at the end of August is, I'm sure, beyond unpleasant. It is actually life-threatening at this point. But instead of using all hands on deck in order to provide those most impacted with assistance and resources, the New Orleans Police Department put this message out, which was also echoed by the mayor of New Orleans in her press conference today, outlining the situation that is on the ground currently in New Orleans. Like, she took the time to double down on what the chief of police is about to tell you in this Twitter video. Tune in. If we could take a look at that, please.
Hi, I'm your superintendent of the New Orleans Police Department, Sean Ferguson, and I am here to ask you, to urge you, to strongly encourage you to remain home during the night hours in the city of New Orleans. There's absolutely no reason for anyone to be on the streets of the city of New Orleans during the nightfall. We're currently seeing standing water in some of our community streets. We're currently seeing trees blocking some of our streets, as well as some utility poles blocking our passageways. Do not put yourself in harm's way, thereby putting our public safety members in harm's way. I have instructed our officers to engage anyone who is on the streets of the city of New Orleans during the night hours and to actively encourage them to remain home. Also, we have implemented our anti-looting plan, which is a partnership with our Louisiana National Guard as well as our Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office to discourage those who wish to commit any looting crimes, but also identify, locate, and arrest those who commit looting crimes. We are in this together. Tomorrow is a new day, and tomorrow we can continue to help each other as we have been doing. But it must start tonight in remaining home and remaining safe. Again, we will get through this hurricane season together.
To echo Shades, Shirley, Big Teal, Northern Witch, Franny French, all the people who got perfectly excellent, great God-given good sense in this chat. Fuck the police. Did you hear him say that the police are going to actively engage and frisk people who are out on the streets at night? You understand that the people now don't have power. So I'm sorry. You supposed to sit around in the hot house like all night long? I mean, you can want people to do something, but listen, I mean, the fact that so many New Orleanians were unable to evacuate, guys. Why? The storm hit the week of the 1st. Kids, what you think was happening? Do you think people who could afford to evacuate chose to stay? Or was it people who knew that they only had an option of paying their rent on tomorrow, on the 1st, or evacuated and possibly not having some place to come back to. These climate catastrophes are putting people in truly impossible situations, and our state resources and state leadership are not equipped and certainly are not meeting the mark on when it comes to making sure that people have the very basics of what they need. And over policing during this time is not the answer. Okay. And part of the reason why a chill goes down my spine when I hear the chief of police in New Orleans talking about deploying anti-looting units, right? First of all, if the grocery store is what's being looted, I think you just need to let the grocery store go ahead and get looted. You know why? Because people are hungry. They just survived a Category 4 storm that just buried down on their ass, and nothing is open. Everything is closed. Money is probably pretty useless, or at least if you have a electronic funds, a debit card or whatever, that shit ain't no good. If the power is out, zero good, right? So the police are going to defend the grocery stores after a Category 4 hurricane. Tunde, I wanted to take a look at that PBS NewsHour clip because this is about 10 years old. And again, chill went down my spine when I hear the chief of police talking about anti-looting deploying anti-looting squads, because during Hurricane Katrina, one of the worst police brutality incidents ever happened in the days following Hurricane Katrina, where New Orleans police that were part of an anti-looting squad that had been deployed across the city to try to prevent looting, protect property while people are waterless, foodless, shelterless, unable to remain cool in the sweltering heat of August in Louisiana. People got murdered by the cops in a very infamous incident, but I don't think it's an incident that is spoken about enough. So again, keep in mind, this is from 10 years ago. This is going to be PBS NewsHour's Judy Woodruff bringing us up to speed on the case of the Danziger Bridge. Do I have that correct? That happened in New Orleans in the days immediately following Katrina by police officers who were part of an anti-looting unit. Let's take a look at that, please.
1 week after Katrina's initial blow to New Orleans, police shot 6 unarmed people on the city's Danziger Bridge after officers said they were responding to the distress call of another shooting. 2 of those 6 were killed, 17-year-old James Brissett and a 40-year-old mentally disabled man, Ronald Madison. Madison was killed when police chased him and his brother Lance, who was with him as they tried to find safe haven. Lance Madison was later arrested and accused of firing at police, according to prosecutors. But today, in federal court, a jury convicted a former police officer, a retired sergeant, and 3 current members of the New Orleans Police Department, all on charges stemming from a cover-up. All but 1 were convicted of civil rights violations connected with the shootings as well. James Brissett's mother spoke of her loss after the verdict.
They took the twinkle out my eye, the song out of my heart, and blew out my candle. But it's going to be all right because justice has been served.
And Lance Madison, who lost his brother and nearly lost his freedom, expressed his thanks to the jury.
I am thankful for having some closure after 60 long years and struggling for justice. I am most grateful to my family, especially to my brother Romeo. Without the support and hard work of my family, I might still be in prison for false charges, and the truth about what happened on the Danziger Bridge might never have been known.
The trial was a high-profile test of the Justice Department's effort to clean up a police department marred by a reputation for corruption and brutality. A total of 20 current or former New Orleans police officers were charged last year in a series of federal probes. Most of the cases center on actions during the aftermath of the storm, which plunged the city into a state of lawlessness. 2 cases have already gone to trial. Jim Letton is a U.S. attorney for Louisiana's Eastern District.
Today's verdict by these jurors sends a powerful, unmistakable message to public servants, to law enforcement officers, and to the citizens we serve, and indeed to the world. That message is that public officials, and especially law enforcement officers, will be held accountable for their acts, and that any abuse of power, especially that power that violates the rights and the civil liberties of our citizens, will have serious consequences.
Sentencing is set for December 14th.
Guys, that was PBS NewsHour reporting on the Danziger Bridge murders that happened immediately following Hurricane Katrina. Guys, for the anti-looting units from the New Orleans Police Department. So again, any lessons learned from the Black misleadership class, from Ray Nagin to this woman who is the mayor of New Orleans now, Cantrell. I think that's Mayor Cantrell. No. Property must be protected first and foremostly above the needs of the people, right? And for all those, yes, who said fuck the media too? Of course, Craig Bardo. Thank you, darling. Absolutely. And for people who be like, well, they can't be that hungry. Why are they looting televisions? Well, let me tell you why televisions and the like get looted, okay? Because electronics are currency. You may not know this if you've never had to delve into the sub economy of the United States, right? But the barter system is big and real out here. And if you got a nice television in the box, undamaged, you're going to make you a few $100s cash in your hand, right? Because that's the only way that this kind of transaction is happening. So don't question why people go to the store and loot clothes and shoes and TVs. It's because it turns into money. Do you understand? Are we able to follow this logic? This is called survival shit. This is what people do out here to make it every day. And in the aftermath of a devastating hurricane, yeah, anything that you can convert into cash is going to get converted into cash. But people like to sit out here and play stupid and play ignorant, or just clearly don't give a fuck about the ways in which poor people survive and the tactics that must be undertaken in order to survive. And trust me, I don't begrudge anybody who is doing survival stealing, survival shoplifting right now, potentially even survival pickpocketing, since we talk about New Orleans. And I'm just kidding with y'all, New Orleans, and I joke like that because I have had my pocket picked in New Orleans, so I know how to 504 get down. So people got to do what they got to do, and honestly, you can't fault any of that, okay? Because as we have seen that the government is letting people down. Tunde, if we could pop up for me, there's an article, because the other part of this, in addition to any sort of resources being devoted to anti-looting, efforts to protect property and merchandise over actual people's lives, the fact that this sort of crippling of our infrastructure continues to happen with each successive big storm. Tunde, could you pop up, this is B4 for me, okay? This is from NOLA.com, and it says in the headline, New Orleans lost power in Hurricane Ida after tower collapsed in the river. Fix could take days, possibly even longer. So for a really big swath of folks, people are going to be impacted by these power outages for probably weeks to come. And it's not about to get cooler in New Orleans as September happens. In fact, I'm concerned if there should be another major storm, category 2, 3, or higher, that could hit Louisiana. And the state and the infrastructure is already sort of in this debilitated mode already, right? And y'all, for this to be 21st century and for it to be perfectly plain and obvious and forecasted and laid out very, very directly for people to understand about the severity, the increasing severity of climate change resulting in cataclysmic storms, hurricanes, regular thunderstorms, derechos, tornadoes, everything, right? Why do they keep building shit like it's fucking Acme factories being bought by Wile damn Coyote? Like, why can't y'all build something that is going to withstand this? I understand, or maybe do it a different way. Maybe don't build a tower. maybe there is another innovative way in order for cellular service to be transmitted, so much so that it actually stands up when it's most needed during an emergency, right? During a natural disaster is exactly the time where you need to call somebody. And the fact that all of this shit keeps collapsing, and I know what it is, a lot of it overwhelmingly has very little to do with lack of innovation and whether or not the technology or any of that is there in order for stuff to be made able to withstand these very strong storms. No, it's all because of deregulation, right? That was the problem with the power plant in Texas that went kaput. And not only were people freezing to death, but those who actually even had power and gas were hit with exorbitant bills in the thousands, right? Because governments have allowed deregulation to run amok, right? Necessary system upgrades are not being made. We are still very much in the 20th century, y'all. We might still be technology-wise, if we keep it a buck, we might be very much in the 80s. Like, we might be like in 88, maybe 89. I don't think we're quite in the 90s yet. Everyone I know that goes and travels to the East, you know, they go to South Korea, they go to Singapore, and then they're like, yo, they're living over in the year 2345. Like, South Korea is in the 23rd century. I don't know what the fuck America is in. We still in covered wagons and shit. But enough is enough. And honestly, I hope that Joe Biden's infrastructure bill addresses some of this, which I sincerely doubt, because Joe Biden, like the rest of these fuckers, are highly invested in keeping us very much in the 20th century, keeping the status quo, keeping power and energy innovations at a very bare minimum, if any, if at all, right? And it is awful. It is exhausting and tiresome to see that literally 1 million people in New Orleans are going to have to literally survive very high temperatures, sweltering humidity, because we don't know how to keep the lights on when it rains real hard. And I'm not even trying to minimize the strength and the severity of a hurricane. I understand very clearly what hurricanes are capable of doing, but we should be smart enough by this point in our evolution to figure out a workaround around that. There's got to be a way. And the fact that there ain't no way, then we got the wrong people in charge, which of course we already knew that, right? Guys, Tesla's still trying to tap into the Texas power grid. Courtney, I mean, apparently this is the only way the government does anything with these and I'm not saying that has actually happened. I'm not sure, but thank you so much for bringing that to my attention. But these bullshit public-private partnerships, that dumb shit that Keisha Lance Bottom is talking about doing with police in Atlanta, that stupid shit that Larry Hogan, the governor of Maryland, does, and I'm sure a lot of other places around the country are doing these ridiculous private-public partnerships when it comes to infrastructure stuff. For example, anyway, traffic around here is terrible, okay? Traffic in Maryland and D.C. and Northern Virginia is awful, right? So in Maryland, by the way, where we pay very high taxes generally, right? There is what they call the ICC, the Inter-County Connector, which connects Prince George's County up to a little upper part of Montgomery County. So it connects like Beltsville, Laurel area up to, I want to say Germantown. Where does the ICC drop you off at? Somewhere around there, Germantown. Them places in Mo County that I don't ever go all the way up there, but it's a toll road. Okay. Miss me with a toll road in a state where we already pay extremely high taxes, right? Why the fuck is there a toll road? Because how else is the private part of the public-private partnership supposed to make its money back? It is the most preposterous shit ever. This is all stuff that government should be doing, right? And if government is unwilling to do it, well, then why the fuck are we paying our taxes promptly? Promptly and in full. No, this is wrong. Absolutely wrong. So more pressure needs to be put, not just on Biden. Like, I feel like Biden is like the last link in the chain at this point. Like, we are just being misled and led astray by literal buffoons, by buffoonish capitalist ghouls who don't care and who are quite accustomed to great loss of life and great inconvenience, right? To put it mildly, put upon people numerous times a year as a result of climate change. So if Joe Biden wants to get serious about infrastructure and serious about climate change, well, first and foremost, he could cancel and stop Line 3, the Enbridge pipeline up there in northern Minnesota, where there has been some movement, by the way. We're going to get into that a little bit later this week. But he has to address this issue of this continuous failing of power grids, of levees, of things that are there to keep people safe, things that we just spent $2 trillion in Afghanistan, shit that we obviously can afford to do. We are just opting rather to be the world's war machine and spending hundreds of millions, if not billions and trillions of dollars engaging militaristically in places abroad. Meanwhile, America falls into the fucking ocean. Miss me with that shit. A Lady 747, thank you so much, honey. Thank you so much for your support, guys. Let's call it a night, shall we? It's 3 after the hour. I'm going to say good night to y'all. Let me say good night. Well, look at all my friends in here. We have Ms. Nori up in this joint. What's up, Luke Kang? Thank you so much, Luke Kang, for all your support. Leah, Courtney the SLP. I haven't seen Black Magic in a while. Y'all tell Black Magic I said what's up. Girl, Northern Witch, the ocean is on fire and they're still arresting water and land protectors. Honey, make it make sense, right? We're going to talk about the Enbridge Line 3 some more. I know I talked about it last week, but this is such an important story, because if that tar sands gets into the headwaters of the Mississippi, man, listen, it's going to be extremely bad. So thank you all for all of your support. You guys are amazing. I know I saw Shades, Elena up in here. Hi, Elena. Thank you so much, baby. Ear Hustler. What's guan? What a guan? Oh, what else we got in here? Lots of people up in here. David Silberg, thank you so much for your support, David Silberg. Guys, don't forget, tune in to Black Power Media for the usual slate of amazing programming. Head on over to Black Power Media and hit subscribe. And if you have not already subscribed to Burn It Down with Kim Brown, do so, please, if it's not too much trouble. Guys, we'll see you back here on Friday on behalf of Tunde, Molly, and Jean-Vieve. We will see you guys later. See y'all later. Bye-bye.